The galaxy was on edge, its fragile balance teetering under the weight of humanity's defiance. News of the SS Odyssey's successful strike against Zorathian supply depots spread like wildfire, igniting both hope and fear across Earth and beyond. In New Chicago, Sarah Bennett walked through streets filled with cheering crowds, her notebook tucked under her arm. People waved flags, sang songs, and shouted slogans like "For Earth, for Freedom." It was a moment of unity, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that it was fleeting. The Zorothians wouldn't let this attack go unanswered. And when they retaliated, the cost could be devastating. At a local cafe, she sat down to write about the mood of the city. Across from her, an older man named Harold leaned over his coffee cup, watching the celebrations outside the window. "It's good to see people happy," he said, glancing at Sarah. "But I remember the last time we thought we had the upper hand. That's when things got really bad." Sarah nodded, jotting down his words. She understood what he meant. History had taught humanity that victories often came at a price, and this war was far from over. Still, there was something inspiring about seeing so many people come together, united by a shared purpose. For now at least, fear took a back seat to pride. Back aboard the SS Odyssey, Captain Lucas Hayes and his crew were already planning their next move. The success of the first mission had boosted morale, but it also raised the stakes. Zorothian patrols had grown more aggressive, and intelligence reports suggested they were amassing forces near key human outposts. The crew knew their next target would be even more dangerous, but they didn't have the luxury of hesitation. Every delay gave the enemy time to regroup and retaliate. In the engineering bay, Mia Torres worked tirelessly to reinforce the ship's shields and repair damage from the previous mission. Her hands moved quickly over control panels, tightening bolts and rerouting power systems. Despite her exhaustion, she refused to slow down. "We're going into battle again," she muttered to herself. "This ship needs to be ready." When Lucas entered, he found her hunched over a console, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the screen. "How's it looking?" he asked, leaning against the doorway. Mia glanced up, brushing hair from her eyes. "Better than before," she replied. "But if we take another hit like the last one, I'm not sure how much longer these shields will hold." Lucas nodded, stepping closer. "We'll make it work," he said firmly. "You've done everything you can, Mia. Now it's up to the rest of us to keep this ship safe." Her lips curved into a faint smile, though worry lingered in her eyes. "I just hope it's enough." On Earth, President Daniel Brooks convened a meeting with top military leaders and diplomats to discuss strategy. The room buzzed with energy as advisors debated the best course of action. Samantha Lee, head of intelligence, stood at the front, presenting holographic maps of contested territories. "Our counteroffensive has weakened their supply lines," she explained, "but it's also provoked them. They're mobilizing forces faster than anticipated. If we don't act soon, they could cut off our access to critical resources." Daniel listened intently, his expression grim. He knew the risks involved, but retreat wasn't an option. Humanity had taken a stand, and backing down now would only invite further aggression. "We need to push forward," he said finally. "Target their command centers next. Disrupt their ability to coordinate attacks, and we might buy ourselves some breathing room." The plan was risky, but the team agreed it was worth the gamble. With Keleth patrols providing limited cover near Earth-controlled space, humanity's forces could focus on high-impact strikes deeper into enemy territory. It was a bold strategy, one that required precision and timing, but if it worked, it could shift the balance of power in their favor. Meanwhile, whispers of rebellion began to spread among younger species within the Galaxy Council. Inspired by humanity's defiance, some civilizations started questioning the Council's authority. On a distant moon, representatives from 3 neutral races met in secret to discuss forming a coalition. Their goal was simple: to create a counterbalance to the Council's dominance and ensure fair treatment for all species, regardless of age or power. Among them was Elder Nira, who had sent Lyra, her apprentice, to observe the gathering. Remained officially neutral, but privately, Nira believed change was necessary. "The Council has grown complacent," she told Lyra during a quiet moment. They see themselves as rulers rather than protectors. Perhaps humanity's actions will force them to remember their purpose. Lyra nodded thoughtfully, her young mind processing the implications. Do you think they'll listen? Asked Nira, smiled faintly. Not willingly. But sometimes change comes whether we want it or not. As humanity prepared for its next offensive, tensions reached a breaking point. The Zorathians launched a surprise attack on a major human colony. Catching defenders off guard, explosions rocked the settlement, sending civilians fleeing in panic. The SS Odyssey raced to the scene, arriving just in time to provide reinforcements. The battle was brutal, with both sides suffering heavy losses. Yet, despite the chaos, the humans held their ground, refusing to give up even as the odds turned against them. When the dust settled, the colony lay in ruins. But its people had survived thanks in large part to the Odyssey's efforts. As the crew helped evacuate survivors, Mia noticed something remarkable. Despite the destruction, the colonists carried themselves with quiet determination. They had lost their homes, but not their spirit. This is why we fight, Lucas said softly, standing beside her, so they can rebuild, so they can dream of a better future. Weeks later, the tide began to turn. With Keleth's support bolstering their efforts and new allies emerging from the shadows, humanity launched a final, daring assault on a key Zorthian stronghold. The operation was risky, requiring every available ship and soldier to succeed. But when the smoke cleared, the fortress lay in ruins, a symbol of humanity's resilience and refusal to back down. The victory sent shockwaves through the Galaxy Council. Delegates scrambled to respond, torn between outrage and admiration. Some called for immediate retaliation, while others urged restraint. Recognizing that humanity's defiance had sparked a larger movement, neutral species continued to rally behind Earth, forming a loose alliance dedicated to reforming the Council's outdated policies. In the aftermath, a ceasefire was proposed, not by the Council, but by neutral parties seeking stability. Humanity agreed, but only after securing guarantees of sovereignty and fairer terms in future treaties. It was a hard-fought compromise, one that left no one entirely satisfied but paved the way for a new era of cooperation. Back on Earth, Sarah Bennett reflected on everything she had witnessed. From the initial rejection of the treaty to the battles fought in distant star systems, humanity had proven itself capable of standing tall among the stars. Fear had once threatened to divide them, but courage and unity had carried them through. As she typed the final lines of her article, she felt a sense of cautious optimism. The road ahead would be long and uncertain, but for the first time in years, humanity had a chance to shape its own destiny. Though challenges remained, one truth rang clear. No empire, no matter how vast or ancient, could extinguish the indomitable spirit of those who dared to dream. The galaxy had changed forever, and humanity was no longer content to live in anyone's shadow. The galaxy was changing, and humanity found itself at the center of it all. The fragile alliance with the Keleth brought a small measure of relief, but tensions continued to mount. On Earth, people prepared for what many feared would be an inevitable war. Factories worked around the clock to produce weapons and supplies, while military bases buzzed with activity as soldiers trained for combat in space. In New Chicago, Sarah Bennett covered these developments closely. Documenting how ordinary citizens were adapting to the growing uncertainty, Sarah spent her days interviewing workers, families, and soldiers, capturing their stories of resilience and fear. At a local factory, she met Lisa Martinez, a single mother who had taken on extra shifts to help meet production quotas. "It's exhausting," Lisa admitted, wiping grease from her hands. "But I can't just sit back and do nothing. If we're going to survive this, we all have to pitch in." Her words echoed the sentiment shared by many. Across the planet, communities came together, organizing food drives, fundraisers, and volunteer efforts to support those affected by recent attacks. Even children played games inspired by the conflict, pretending to pilot starships or defend colonies against alien invaders. For better or worse, humanity's defiance had become a part of everyday life. Meanwhile, aboard the SS Odyssey, Captain Lucas Hayes and his crew remained on high alert. With Kelith patrols covering certain areas near Earth-controlled space, the ship could focus on reinforcing key outposts and gathering intelligence. Lucas knew the reprieve wouldn't last long. The Zorothians were still out there, watching, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Every day that passed without incident felt like borrowed time. One evening, as the ship drifted through the vast emptiness of space, Mia Torres sat in the engineering bay running diagnostics. She had grown. Quieter over the past few weeks, her usual enthusiasm dimmed by the weight of responsibility. When Lucas entered, he noticed the dark circles under her eyes and the way she barely looked up from her work. "How are you holding up?" he asked, leaning against a nearby console. Mia shrugged, not bothering to hide her exhaustion. "Fine," she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "Just tired of feeling like we're always one step behind." Lucas nodded sympathetically. "I get it," he replied. "This isn't easy for anyone. But you're doing great work, Mia. We wouldn't be where we are without you." She managed a weak smile, but didn't respond. Instead, she returned her attention to the control panel, adjusting settings with practiced precision. Lucas lingered a moment longer before leaving her to her task. As much as he wanted to reassure her, he knew there were no guarantees not for her. It's not for any of them. Back on Earth, President Daniel Brooks faced mounting pressure from both allies and critics. Some praised his leadership, crediting him with uniting humanity during a time of crisis. Others accused him of recklessness, warning that his decisions might lead to disaster. During a press conference in Geneva, reporters bombarded him with questions about the latest developments. "Mr. President," one journalist called out, "do you believe the Kelith's limited support will be enough to protect us?" Daniel took a deep breath before responding. "We're grateful for their assistance," he said carefully. "But we also know that true security comes from within. Humanity must stand united, ready to defend our values and our future. This isn't just about surviving. It's about proving that we deserve a place among the stars." His words resonated. With many, though, skepticism remained. Samantha Lee, standing off to the side, watched the crowd intently. She had spent years analyzing threats and strategizing responses, yet even she struggled to predict what might happen next. The Galaxy Council's reaction was unpredictable, and the Zorothians' intentions remained shrouded in mystery. All they could do was prepare and hope for the best. As days turned into weeks, reports began filtering in of increased Zorothian activity along humanity's borders. Their ships patrolled aggressively, testing defenses and probing weaknesses. Civilians living in frontier colonies reported sightings of alien vessels hovering ominously in the distance. Fear spread quickly, prompting mass evacuations and straining already limited resources. In response, President Brooks authorized a daring counteroffensive. "We can't keep playing defense," he told his advisors during a private meeting. "If we wait for them to attack, we'll lose ground faster than we can recover it. It's time to take the fight to them." The plan involved targeting key supply routes used by the Zorothians and their allies within the Galaxy Council. By disrupting their logistics, humanity hoped to weaken their ability to launch coordinated attacks. The operation required precision and stealth, qualities embodied by the SS Odyssey and its crew. When Lucas received the mission briefing, he gathered his team in the ship's conference room. "This is it," he said, addressing the group. "Chance to hit back hard and send a message. We'll be targeting 3 major supply depots located in contested territories. Success means crippling their operations, at least temporarily." The crew listened intently, exchanging glances as they absorbed the gravity of the task ahead. Lieutenant Karen White, the communications officer, raised a hand hesitantly. "What happens if we fail?" she asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Lucas met her gaze steadily. "Then we regroup and try again," he replied. "We've come too far to give up now. Humanity is counting on us." With preparations underway, the Odyssey set course for the first target. The journey was tense, every crew member aware of the risks involved. When they arrived, the depot loomed in the distance, a massive structure surrounded by smaller escort ships. Lucas ordered the ship to maintain radio silence as they approached, relying on stealth to avoid detection. Mia monitored the engines closely, ensuring they ran smoothly despite the strain of evasive maneuvers. Her hands moved deftly over the controls, sweat trickling down her forehead as she focused on keeping the ship operational. "Come on, baby," she whispered to herself. "Don't let me down." As the Odyssey reached optimal position, Lucas gave the order to fire. Missiles streaked through space, striking the depot with devastating force. Explosions lit up the darkness, sending shockwaves rippling outward. Chaos erupted as Zorathian escorts scrambled to retaliate, but the Odyssey was already retreating. Slipping away before they could pinpoint its location, the attack was a success, though not without cost. Damage to the ship's hull required immediate repairs, and several crew members sustained minor injuries during the battle. Despite these setbacks, morale soared. For the first time in months, humanity had struck a meaningful blow against its enemies. News of the victory spread quickly, igniting celebrations across Earth. People poured into streets and squares, waving flags and chanting slogans. Images of burning supply depots filled screens worldwide, accompanied by speeches from leaders praising the bravery of those who had risked everything for the cause. Even critics of the rebellion found themselves caught up in the wave of patriotism. But amidst the jubilation, warnings lingered. The Zorathians would not tolerate such brazen aggression. Retaliation was inevitable, and when it came, humanity would need to be ready. Back aboard the Odyssey, Lucas reminded his crew to stay vigilant. "This is just the beginning," he said during a debriefing session. "They'll come after us harder than ever now. We've shown them we can fight, but we've also made ourselves a bigger target." Mia nodded, her expression grim. "So, what's next?" she asked. Lucas glanced at the map displayed on the screen, highlighting the remaining targets. "We keep hitting them where it hurts," he replied. "We don't stop until they realize we're not backing down." Across the Galaxy Council convened an emergency session. Delegates argued fiercely over how to respond to humanity's growing boldness. The Zorathians pushed for immediate retaliation, calling for a full-scale invasion of Earth-controlled space. Other members urged caution, warning that such actions could escalate into a galactic war neither side could afford. Fear rippled through the chamber, mirroring the unease spreading among older civilizations. For centuries they had ruled unchallenged, confident in their dominance. Now, a single defiant species threatened to unravel the fragile order they had maintained for so long. Whispers of rebellion began to surface among younger races, inspired by humanity's example. In the shadows of the council chamber, secret alliances formed. Neutral species debated whether to side with humanity or remain uninvolved. The stakes had never been higher, and every decision carried consequences that would shape the galaxy for generations to come. As the debate raged on, one truth became clear: humanity's defiance had ignited a spark that could not be extinguished. Whether it led to triumph or disaster remained to be seen, but one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. The battle at Proxima Centauri 4 left a deep scar on humanity's collective psyche. Images of destroyed ships and burning colonies were broadcast across Earth, stirring emotions that ranged from anger to grief. In New Chicago, Sarah Bennett sat in her small apartment, staring at the screen as footage of the attack replayed endlessly. She had spent the past few days interviewing survivors who had been evacuated from the colony. Their stories painted a harrowing picture: families torn apart, homes reduced to rubble, lives lost in an instant. Yet, amidst the devastation, there was also resilience. People spoke of their determination to rebuild, to fight back, to ensure that such an attack would never happen again. Sarah felt a mix of pride and unease as she typed up her latest article. Humanity had shown incredible strength in the face of adversity, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The Galaxy Council, and the Zorathians in particular, would not let this act of defiance go unanswered. Retaliation was inevitable, and when it came, humanity would need more than courage to survive. They would need allies. This thought lingered in her mind as she prepared for her next assignment. Ambassador Jason Miller had announced plans to travel to the Vega system to negotiate with the Kelith, a reclusive race known for their neutrality. If anyone could sway the balance of power in humanity's favor, It was the Kelith. Their organic ships and advanced technology made them formidable allies, though they rarely involved themselves in galactic conflicts. Sarah had been granted permission to accompany the delegation, and she saw it as an opportunity to witness history firsthand. The journey to the Vega system took several days, during which Sarah had plenty of time to reflect. The delegation included Jason Miller, Emily Dawson, and a small team of advisors and security personnel. They traveled aboard the SS Horizon, a sleek vessel designed for diplomatic missions. Unlike military ships like the SS Odyssey, the Horizon lacked weapons systems, relying instead on speed and stealth to navigate dangerous territories as the ship approached the Kelith homeworld. Sarah marveled at the sight outside her window. The planet was unlike anything she had ever seen, a swirling mass of greens and blues, dotted with glowing bioluminescent patches. It looked alive, almost pulsing with energy. The Kelith lived in harmony with nature, their cities blending seamlessly into the environment. Massive trees stretched toward the sky, their branches intertwined with structures made of living material. Even the ships orbiting the planet appeared to be grown rather than built, their surfaces shimmering like leaves under sunlight. When the delegation landed, they were greeted by Elder Nira, the leader of the Kelith. She stood tall despite her age, her translucent skin glowing faintly in the dim light. Her eyes, a deep shade of green, seemed to pierce through everyone present, as though she could see into their very souls. Beside her stood Lyra, her young apprentice, whose curiosity about outsiders was evident in her eager gaze. Jason stepped forward, bowing slightly out of respect. "Elder Nira," he began, his voice calm and measured. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. We come seeking your wisdom and support during these difficult times." Nira studied him for a moment before responding. "You have taken a bold step, Ambassador Miller," she said, her tone neutral but firm. "Defying the Galaxy Council is no small matter. Many will see it as reckless, while others may view it as inspiring. What makes you believe we should involve ourselves in your struggle?" Jason hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Because this isn't just about Earth," he replied. "It's about fairness for all younger civilizations who have been held back by the Council's dominance. The treaties and regulations they impose benefit only the oldest and most powerful species, leaving the rest of us struggling to survive. If we don't challenge this system now, nothing will ever change." Nira listened intently, her expression unreadable. When Jason finished speaking, she turned to Emily, who had remained silent until now. "And what do you think, Diplomat Dawson?" she asked. "Do you share his belief that humanity's actions are justified?" Emily met the elder's gaze without hesitation. "Yes, I do," she said firmly. "We've tried playing by their rules for years, but it hasn't worked. Every treaty, every agreement, they're designed to keep us weak and dependent. We're tired of being treated as inferior. All we want is a fair chance to grow and thrive just like everyone else." For a long moment, Nira said nothing. Then she nodded slowly. "Your words carry weight," she admitted. "But alliances require trust, and trust must be earned. You ask us to risk our neutrality, to take sides in a conflict that does not directly concern us. Before we can offer aid, you must prove yourselves worthy of it." Jason nodded, understanding the gravity of her demand. "What would you have us do?" he asked. At Nira gestured for them to follow her as she led the group deeper into the heart of the Kelith settlement. The air smelled faintly of earth and vegetation, and soft rustling sounds filled the silence. As they walked, she explained the Kelith's philosophy, a belief in balance and coexistence. "We do not seek conquest or domination," she said. "Our strength lies in our ability to adapt, to live in harmony with the world around us. If you wish to earn our support, you must demonstrate that you share these values." By the time they reached a large gathering hall, Sarah realized this meeting was more than just a negotiation, it was a test. The Kelith wanted to see if humanity truly understood the importance of cooperation and mutual respect. Over the next several hours, the delegation engaged in discussions with various Kelith leaders, answering questions about Earth's culture, ambitions, and vision for the future. Sarah watched closely, taking notes and observing the dynamics between the two groups. At times, tensions flared, especially when the topic of expansion came up. Some Kelith expressed concerns that humanity's drive to explore new territories might lead to exploitation or destruction. Jason and Emily worked tirelessly to reassure them, emphasizing Earth's commitment to sustainable growth and peaceful exploration. By the end of the day, Nira called everyone together for a final decision. Standing before the gathered delegates, she spoke with authority. "We have heard your arguments and witnessed your sincerity," she said. "While we cannot fully commit to your cause, we will provide limited aid. Our ships will patrol certain areas near Earth-controlled space, ensuring safe passage for your civilians. However, full involvement requires further proof of your dedication to peace and equity." Though not the outright alliance they had hoped for, the offer was still significant. Jason thanked Nira graciously, knowing that even partial support from the Kelith could make a difference. As the delegation prepared to leave, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of cautious optimism. The Kelith were powerful, and their backing, even in a limited capacity, could tip the scales in humanity's favor. Back on Earth, President Daniel Brooks received news of the agreement with relief. "It's a start," he told Samantha Lee during a private meeting. "Not everything we wanted, but enough to give us breathing room." He knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but for the first time in weeks, he allowed himself a glimmer of hope. Meanwhile, aboard the SS Odyssey, Captain Lucas Hayes learned of the Kelith's decision via encrypted transmission. "Limited aid is better than none," he told Mia Torres as they reviewed the message. "With their patrols covering our borders, we can focus on fortifying key positions." Mia nodded, though her expression remained guarded. "Still feels like we're walking a tightrope," she muttered. "One wrong move, and it all comes crashing down." Lucas placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We've got this, Mia. One step at a time." Across the galaxy, whispers of humanity's growing resistance continued to spread. Neutral species watched with interest, some admiring their bravery, others wary of the consequences. The Galaxy Council, meanwhile, grew increasingly uneasy. Fear, the same fear that had driven humanity to rebel, was now spreading among the older, more established civilizations. For centuries, they had ruled unchallenged, confident in their dominance. Now, a single defiant species threatened to unravel the fragile order they had maintained for so long. In the shadows of the council chamber, secret meetings were held. Plans were drawn up, strategies debated. The Zorathians pushed for immediate action, arguing that humanity needed to be crushed before their rebellion inspired others to rise up. But not everyone agreed. Some council members saw potential in negotiating a compromise, hoping to avoid an all-out war that could destabilize the entire galaxy. As the debate raged on, one truth became clear: humanity's defiance had ignited, a spark that could not be extinguished. Whether it led to triumph or disaster remained to be seen, but one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. Weeks passed, and the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. The initial shock of humanity's defiance had settled into a tense uncertainty. On Earth, life carried on as usual for many people, but beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. News reports painted conflicting pictures. Some celebrated humanity's boldness, while others warned of the dangers ahead. In New Chicago, Sarah Bennett continued her work as a journalist, traveling across the city to capture the mood of the people. Everywhere she went, she found a mix of hope and fear. In a quiet park near the edge of the city, Sarah approached a group of teenagers playing a game of hoverball. The sport was popular among younger generations, a fast-paced blend of soccer and basketball played with floating discs. As she waited for them to finish their match, Sarah noticed how carefree they seemed, laughing and shouting as though nothing in the galaxy mattered. When the game ended, she approached one of the players, a boy named Alex. "Hey," she said with a smile. "You know what's going on with the council and all that stuff?" Alex shrugged, brushing sweat from his forehead. "Yeah, I guess so. My dad says we're sticking up for ourselves, which is cool, but my mom keeps saying we're going to get into trouble." He grinned. "Clearly more interested in the game than politics, I don't know. Maybe it'll be fine." Sarah nodded, jotting down notes. It was fascinating how perspectives varied depending on age, experience, and personal stakes. For young people like Alex, the situation felt distant, almost abstract. For adults with families and responsibilities, the risks loomed much larger. Meanwhile, aboard the SS Odyssey, Captain Lucas Hayes and his crew remained vigilant. The ship had been assigned to patrol humanity's frontier colonies, watching for any signs of aggression from alien forces. So far, things had been quiet, but Lucas knew better than to let his guard down. Every day brought new reports of Zorathian ships lingering near Earth-controlled space. Our presence was unsettling, like a predator circling its prey. One evening, as the ship drifted through the vast emptiness of space, Miatora sat in the engineering bay tinkering with a piece of equipment. She wasn't scheduled to work, but staying busy helped distract her from the anxiety gnawing at her mind. The hum of machinery filled the room, blending with the soft glow of control panels. When Lucas entered, Mia looked up, surprised to see him. "Still working?" he asked, leaning against the doorway. Mia shrugged. "Couldn't sleep," she admitted. "Too much running through my head." Lucas nodded, understanding completely. "You're not alone," he said. "Everyone's feeling it. But we've trained for this, Mia. We're ready." Mia sighed, setting down her tools. "I hope so. Sometimes I wonder if we're just kidding ourselves, thinking we can stand toe-to-toe with races like the Zorathians. They've been around for thousands of years. What are we compared to that?" Lucas stepped closer, his expression serious. "We're different," he replied. "We adapt. We innovate. Look at how far we've come in such a short time. That's something they don't have. And besides, we're fighting for something real for our homes, our families, our future. That makes us stronger than any weapon." Mia wanted to believe him, but doubt lingered in her eyes. Before she could respond, an alarm blared throughout the ship, startling them both. Instantly, Lucas sprang into action, rushing toward the bridge, with Mia close behind. When they arrived, the crew was already scrambling to assess the situation. Lieutenant Karen White, the ship's communications officer, turned to Lucas with urgency. "Captain, we've picked up distress signals from Proxima Centauri 4. One of our mining colonies is under attack." Lucas' heart sank. Proxima Centauri. Ivy was one of humanity's most vital outposts, rich in resources needed to sustain Earth's growing population. If it fell, the consequences would be catastrophic. Without hesitation, he gave the order to set a course for the colony. "Prepare weapons, systems, and alert medical teams," he instructed. "We need to be ready for anything." As the Odyssey hurtled through space, tension gripped the crew. No one spoke as they prepared for what lay ahead. When they arrived, the scene was chaos. Alien vessels identified as belonging to the Zorothian empires formed the area, firing upon the colony's defenses. Explosions lit up the darkness, sending debris spiraling into the void. Civilians scrambled to evacuate, their faces etched with panic. Lucas wasted no time. "Lock onto those ships and return fire," he commanded. "Get me a channel too?" "The colony leaders. We need to coordinate evacuations." The battle was fierce. Zorathian weapons were devastatingly powerful, capable of tearing through human shields with ease. But the Odyssey fought back with everything it had. It's smaller, size allowing it to maneuver quickly and strike where the enemy least expected. Mia worked tirelessly in the engineering bay, patching damaged systems and rerouting power to critical areas. Sweat dripped from her brow as she pushed herself to the limit, knowing that every second counted. On the ground, chaos reigned. Families, huddled together, clutched most possessions they could carry. Among them was Ryan Carter, who had been transferred to the colony months earlier for work. He clutched his daughter's hand tightly, guiding her toward a transport shuttle. "Stay close," he urged, his voice trembling. Around them, explosions shook the ground, and the air was thick with smoke and ash. Back on Earth, President Daniel Brooks received updates in real time. His face was grim as he watched footage of the attack unfold. Samantha Lee stood beside him, her expression equally grave. "Sir, we need to act now," she said. "This isn't just about Proxima Centauri. 4, this is a message of warning. If we don't respond decisively, they'll keep coming." Daniel nodded, his jaw tightening. Deploy additional ships to reinforce the Odyssey. And authorize retaliatory strikes against Zorthian patrols near our borders. Let them know we won't tolerate this kind of aggression, Samantha relayed. The orders immediately, her fingers flying across her tablet. As she worked, she couldn't help but think about the broader implications. Humanity had crossed a line, and there was no turning back. The Galaxy Council would view this as an act of war, and tensions would only escalate from here. Yet deep down, she believed it was necessary. For too long, humanity had been pushed aside, treated as inferior. Now they were standing up not just for themselves, but for every species that had ever been silenced by the Council's dominance. Hours later, the battle at Proxima Centauri 4 began to wind down. Thanks to the Odyssey's efforts, most civilians had been evacuated safely. Though the colony itself was left in ruins, Lucas stood on the bridge, staring out at the devastation. His heart ached for the lives lost, but pride swelled within him as well. Against overwhelming odds, his crew had held their ground and protected innocent people. It was a small victory, but one that proved humanity's resilience. When news of the attack reached Earth, outrage spread like wildfire. Images of burning ships and brave pilots filled screens worldwide, igniting a sense of unity among the population. People rallied behind their leaders, chanting slogans like, "No more chains and for Earth, for freedom." Even those who had once doubted humanity's defiance now stood firmly in support. Recognizing the stakes for what they truly were, in Geneva, President Daniel Brooks addressed the nation in a televised speech. Standing before a backdrop of Earth's flag, he spoke with conviction. Today we faced an enemy that sought to crush our spirit and silence our voices. But we did not falter. We fought back, and we protected our own. This is who we are, a species that refuses to bow to tyranny, no matter the cost. His words resonated deeply, bolstering morale across the planet. Yet, even as humanity celebrated this hard-fought victory, everyone knew the fight was far from over. The Galaxy Council and the Zorothian Empire in particular would not take this lightly. Retaliation was inevitable, and the road ahead promised to be fraught with danger. But amidst the fear and uncertainty, there was also hope. Hope that humanity's courage would inspire others to rise up against oppression. Hope that alliances could be forged with neutral species willing to stand alongside them. And hope that no matter how daunting the challenges, humanity would continue to push forward, carving out a place among the stars where freedom and equality reigned supreme. For now, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Back on Earth, the aftermath of Jason Miller's speech rippled through society like a shockwave. News outlets buzzed with updates, replaying clips of his defiant words over and over again. People gathered in living rooms, cafes, and public squares to discuss what it all meant. Some cheered, raising fists in solidarity, while others sat quietly, their faces etched with worry. In New Chicago, Sarah Bennett, a journalist known for her sharp insights into intergalactic politics, found herself at the center of the whirlwind. Sarah had spent years reporting on humanity's struggles within the Galaxy Council. She knew the frustrations better than most: the unfair trade deals, the restrictions on expansion, the constant reminders that humanity was seen as inferior. But she also understood the risks of outright defiance. As she walked through the crowded streets of downtown New Chicago, microphone in hand, she interviewed everyday citizens about their thoughts. "What do you think about Earth rejecting the treaty?" she asked Ryan Carter, a factory worker who had just clocked out for the day. Ryan wiped sweat from his brow and shrugged. "I think it's about time," he said, his voice firm. "We've been bending over backward for these aliens for years, and what have we gotten in return? But scraps. If they don't want us expanding, fine, we'll do it ourselves." Not everyone shared Ryan's optimism. A few blocks away, Maria Lopez, a mother of two, stood outside a grocery store with her children. When Sarah approached her, Maria hesitated before speaking. "I get why we're doing this," she said finally, clutching her youngest child's hand, "but I'm scared. What if the Zorothians or some other empire decides to attack us? We're not ready for that kind of fight." Her voice trembled slightly, and Sarah nodded sympathetically. Fear was spreading, not just among the Galaxy Council, but here on Earth too. Meanwhile, aboard the SS Odyssey, Captain Lucas Hayes prepared for what might come next. The Odyssey was one of humanity's most advanced ships, designed for exploration, but equipped for combat when necessary. Its sleek metallic exterior gleamed under the artificial lights of the docking bay. Inside, the crew bustled about, checking systems and running drills. Lucas, a tall man with short-cropped hair and piercing blue eyes, moved through the corridors with purpose. He had been briefed on the Council's reaction, and new tensions were rising in the ship's engineering bay. Mia Torres worked tirelessly to ensure everything was in perfect condition. Mia was a petite woman with curly brown hair tied back in a ponytail. Her hands moved deftly over control panels, adjusting settings and troubleshooting minor issues. Wasn't a soldier by nature. Her passion lay in solving problems and building things. But lately, she couldn't shake the feeling that her skills might soon be put to the test in ways she hadn't anticipated. As Mia tightened a bolt on a maintenance panel, Lucas entered the bay. "How's it looking?" he asked, his tone casual, but his eyes scanning the room. Mia glanced up and gave him a small smile. "Everything's good so far," she replied. "But honestly, Lucas, do you really think we're ready for this? I mean, we've seen what the Zorathians can do. Their weapons are years ahead of ours." Lucas leaned against a nearby console, crossing his arms. "You're right," he admitted. "They're stronger, faster, more advanced. But that doesn't mean we don't stand a chance. Humanity has something they don't: resilience. We've always been fighters, Mia. Even when the odds are stacked against us, we find a way to push forward." Mia sighed, wiping grease from her hands onto a rag. "I hope you're right," she said softly. "Because if we're wrong, a lot of people are going to pay the price." While the crew of the SS Odyssey prepared for potential conflict, President Daniel Brooks convened an emergency meeting at the United Earth headquarters in Geneva. The president was a middle-aged man with graying temples and a commanding presence. Around the table sat his top advisors, including Samantha Lee, head of intelligence. Samantha was a no-nonsense woman with sharp features and an even sharper mind. She had spent years analyzing the movements of alien fleets and deciphering coded transmissions. "Mr. President," Samantha began, laying out a series of holographic maps on the conference table. "Our agents have detected unusual activity near our frontier colonies. Ships belonging to the Zorathian Empire have been spotted patrolling areas close to Earth-controlled space. It's possible they're preparing for something big." Frowned, leaning forward to study the maps. "Are you saying they're planning an attack?" he asked, his voice low. "It's too early to say for sure," Samantha replied. "But we need to assume the worst. Intelligence suggests the Council may be funding covert operations to destabilize our outposts. They want us scared, Mr. President. Scared enough to back down." The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. Finally, Daniel spoke. "Then we prepare," he said firmly. "Increase security measures across all colonies. Deploy additional reconnaissance units to monitor Zorathian movements. And let's send envoys to neutral planets. We need allies willing to stand with us." Samantha nodded, jotting notes on her tablet. "Understood, sir. I'll get started immediately." As the meeting concluded, Daniel stayed behind, staring out the window at the sprawling city below. He felt the burden of leadership pressing down on him. Every decision he made could mean life or death for millions of people. Yet deep down, he believed they had no choice but to take this risk. Compromise had failed them too many times. Now, it was time to fight for their future. Across the galaxy, whispers of humanity's defiance reached the ears of other species. Some viewed Earth's actions with admiration, seeing them as a bold stand against the oppressive rule of the Council. Others saw only arrogance and recklessness. Among the Keleth, a reclusive race known for their neutrality, Elder Nira watched footage of Jason Miller's speech with keen interest. The Keleth lived in harmony with nature, their organic ships, blending seamlessly into asteroid fields. They rarely involved themselves in galactic affairs, preferring to observe from afar. Nira, an ancient being with translucent skin and glowing green eyes, sat in her meditation chamber, surrounded by bioluminescent plants. Her assistant, a young Keleth named Lyra, stood beside her. What do you make of this, Elder? Lyra asked, tilting her head curiously. Nira remained silent for a moment, her gaze fixed on the screen. It is a dangerous game they play, she said finally.
But perhaps.
It is a necessary one. The Council has grown complacent, content to maintain the status quo while younger civilizations struggle to survive. Humanity's rebellion may force change upon us all. Lyra frowned. Do you think we should help them? Nira turned to her apprentice, her expression thoughtful. Helping comes with risks, but ignoring their plight carries consequences as well. For now, we watch and wait. The outcome of this conflict will shape the galaxy for generations to come. Back on Earth, night fell over New Chicago. Sarah Bennett sat at her desk, typing furiously on her computer. She had spent the day gathering interviews and piecing together stories about humanity's growing defiance. As she wrote, she thought about the courage it took for people like Jason Miller and Lucas Hayes to stand up to the Council. She thought about the fear in Maria Lopez's eyes and the determination in Ryan Carter's voice. Most of all, she thought, about the countless unknown individuals who would bear the brunt of whatever came next. When she finally finished her article, she leaned back in her chair and stared at the screen. The headline read, "Fear and Hope Collide as Humanity Stands Firm Against the Galaxy Council." It wasn't perfect, but it captured the essence of what she had witnessed, a fragile balance between fear and hope, between caution and courage. Whatever happened next. One thing was certain. Humanity had taken its first step toward carving out a place among the stars. Whether that step led to triumph or disaster remained to be seen. The Galaxy Council chamber was a place of grandeur and tension, where representatives from countless alien species gathered to discuss matters that affected the entire universe. The room itself was massive, with high ceilings that seemed to stretch endlessly into the void of space. Rows of seats spiraled outward in a circular pattern, each occupied by beings of different shapes, sizes, and colors. Some had shimmering scales that caught the light. Others had glowing eyes or tentacles instead of hands. At the center of it all stood Jason Miller, Earth's ambassador. A tall man with short brown hair and a calm expression that masked the storm brewing inside him. Jason had been chosen for this role because of his ability to stay composed under pressure. He wasn't the kind of person who shouted or made dramatic gestures. Instead, he spoke softly but firmly, choosing his words carefully. Today, however, even Jason felt the weight of what he was about to do. For years, humanity had played by the rules set by older, more powerful civilizations. They had signed treaties, followed regulations, and tried to prove themselves as worthy members of the galactic community. But those efforts had only led to frustration and inequality. Now, humanity was done playing nice, as Jason stepped up too. The podium, the murmurs filling the chamber, slowly faded. Every ire equivalent was on him. The air was thick with anticipation, and Jason could feel the stares boring into him. He took a deep breath before beginning. Esteemed members of the Galaxy Council, he said, his voice steady despite the nerves bubbling beneath the surface. Today, I stand here not just as a representative of Earth, but as the voice of billions of humans who have grown weary of being treated as second-class citizens in a universe they helped build. His words caused an immediate stir. Beings shifted uncomfortably in their seats, exchanging glances and whispers. Jason ignored them and continued. For decades we have adhered to your treaties, followed your guidelines, and respected your authority. Yet time and again these agreements have favored the interests of established empires while leaving humanity struggling to survive. We are no longer willing to accept terms that stifle our growth and limit our potential. There was a collective gasp from the audience. Few delegates leaned forward, their expressions unreadable. Others looked outraged, their bodies stiffening. In disbelief, Jason pressed on, undeterred. We reject this latest treaty proposal, which seeks to restrict our expansion into uncharted star systems. These territories belong to no one, and we will not allow ourselves to be boxed in any longer. Humanity's destiny lies among the stars, and nothing, not fear, not intimidation, not empty promises, will stop us from claiming it. When he finished speaking, silence fell over the chamber like a heavy curtain. For a moment, no one moved or spoke. Then, the whispers began again, louder this time, spreading through the room like wildfire. Delegates turned to one another, their faces etched with concern. This was unprecedented. No species had ever outright rejected a council treaty before. Most civilizations relied on the council's protection and resources. Defiance was unthinkable. But humanity was different. They were young, ambitious, and unafraid to challenge the status quo. Sitting beside Jason, Emily Dawson watched the reaction unfold with a mixture of pride and unease. She was a petite woman with curly black hair and sharp green eyes. As a diplomat, she had spent years navigating the complex web of interstellar politics, always advocating for Earth's best interests. But today, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking a dangerous path. Rejecting the treaty was bold, yes, but it also carried enormous risks. The Council didn't take kindly to insubordination, and retaliation could come swiftly. And mercilessly, Emily glanced at Jason, who stood tall and resolute, his jaw set in determination. She admired his courage, even if she wasn't entirely convinced it was the right move. Still, she knew there was no turning back now. Humanity had made its choice, and they would have to live with the consequences, whatever they might be. Across the chamber or other delegates were already discussing what to do next. One particularly vocal representative, a Zorathian named Vrox, rose to his feet. The Zorathians were one of the most powerful species in the galaxy, known for their advanced technology and ruthless efficiency. Vrax's skin shimmered like molten gold, and his piercing red eyes scanned the room as he addressed the assembly. "This is unacceptable," he declared, his voice booming through the chamber. "The Council exists to maintain order and prevent chaos. If humanity refuses to abide by our laws, then they must face the consequences." His words sent a chill through the room. Everyone knew what that meant. Zorathians weren't ones to issue idle threats. If they decided to act against Earth, humanity would find itself facing overwhelming odds. Other delegates chimed in, some agreeing with Vrax, others urging caution. The debate went on for hours, growing increasingly heated as tempers flared. Meanwhile, back on Earth, news of the rejected treaty spread quickly. People gathered around screens in homes, offices, and public squares, watching live broadcasts of the council meeting. Reactions were mixed. In New Chicago, Ryan Carter, a factory worker with calloused hands and tired eyes, sat in a dimly lit bar with friends. On the TV above the counter, Jason Miller's speech replayed for the 100th time. Ryan raised his glass in a toast. "Finally, someone's standing up for us," he said, his voice tinged with both anger and hope. "We've been pushed around long enough. It's about time we showed these aliens we're not afraid of them." Not everyone shared his enthusiasm. Across town, Sarah Bennett, a journalist covering intergalactic politics, interviewed citizens about their thoughts. Many expressed pride in humanity's bold stance, but others voiced concerns about the potential fallout. "What happens if they attack us?" asked Maria Lopez, a mother of two.
"We're not ready for a war with those advanced species."
"What are we supposed to do then?" Sarah nodded sympathetically. She understood the fear. Humanity had come so far in such a short time, but compared to the ancient civilizations of the galaxy, they were still newcomers. Their technology, while impressive, paled in comparison to the weapons wielded by races like the Zorathians. And yet, something inside her admired the audacity of it all. Maybe, just maybe, this was the moment humanity needed to break free from the chains holding them back. Back at the council chamber, the session finally drew to a close. Jason and Emily exited together, their footsteps echoing down the long hallway. Neither spoke until they reached their private quarters. Once inside, Emily turned to Jason, her expression serious. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jason sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I do know this. We couldn't keep living like we were, always bending, always compromising, always giving up pieces of ourselves to please others. If we want a future worth fighting for, we have to start somewhere. Emily nodded slowly, though doubt lingered in her eyes. Outside, the sky was dark, dotted with stars that seemed impossibly distant. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of the Council, lay humanity's dreams. Whether they would ever reach them remained to be seen. But one thing was certain. Fear was spreading across the galaxy, and humanity had taken its first step toward changing the rules of the game forever.